if one of my colleagues can just keep admitting those, I've come off the chat bit. So we will get started. So firstly, a big thank you and a big welcome to tonight's meeting, the 6th club update. Since we started these, best part of a year ago. Nice to see so many sign-ups and so many people jumping on again tonight and just proving that the online meetings weren't just kind of a flash in the pan and just specific to COVID. They're a really useful tool for us to get information out there, not just the day-to-day stuff, the important stuff that really supports you as clubs. So big thank you for joining us. On tonight's call, you've got myself over there on the left, Tom Meeson, the club support officer at the County FA. We also have our designated safeguarding officer, Claire McCrory, waving at you now. Molly Johnson, our football development officer for youth football, is on, and my favourite County FA photo of all time. We also have our referee development officer, Aaron Bannister, on with us tonight too. So we've got a good crew on, and hopefully it's going to be a really, really good event. So the plan for tonight, we're going to do some updates briefly around the technology, and then we're going to dive straight into Respect because we've got a lot of content we want to get through tonight. So we're going to fly through that. So Embedding Respect, and I've got a little questionnaire at the end that won't take you any time around club community projects too. So this slide looks blank. It is blank for a reason. It says FA Technology at the top. I was going to do a mass report, mass load of feedback. We just get whether that is muted. Bear with me. Sorry, I just had to mute there. Let me get off that. So we were going to do a full page and go through the ins and outs, but instead, basically, just want to say a massive thank you to everyone on this meeting, everyone involved in the summer, and that's from me and the rest of the staff. We know it was a real huge effort to firstly affiliate and then to get your players registered through what was quite a difficult period. Things went wrong. We can fully appreciate that. The FA have held their hands up as well. Oh, what's that? The FA have held their hands up and confirmed there has been some errors that have caused a lot of stress, and that's been felt at the County FA too. I've been here nearly 3 years, and I've never known an 8-week period like it. We were 40, 50 calls a day, 100, 150 emails a day. So we're not looking for any sympathy there, but we do feel your pain also. So just want to, again, just reaffirm our support. If you're still having any issues, please do come to us. We're more than willing to help and support. And if we need to, show you how you can get around some of these issues or give you some extra training if you need it. So we're still here for that. And the issues that were cropping up, so a lot of the stuff around parent carers not assigning, teams not assigning to league, that type of stuff, the FA are fully aware of, investigate, and generally do get them fixed. But I know at the time that's very, very frustrating. So we just again want to say really, really big thank you for all the hard work that you put in to get through the summer, get your players registered, and most importantly, get your players playing. It's so important. So thank you very much. If you are wanting to ask questions around that, we'll do that at the end so we can get through tonight's content. Okay, on to tonight's main event. Aims for tonight. So we're going to define what respect is, and actually, as important, we're going to define what it isn't as well. We're going to cover a new CFA and League initiative that's rolling out this season. We're going to explain the importance of respect reporting procedures, and then support you to embed and manage respect in-house. So this meeting probably couldn't come at a better time. Respect has always been penciled in to be the first one of this season, but I think it is at the fore at the minute. If you're on social media in particular, you've seen a lot of things, a lot of videos, a lot of content around referee abuse, for example, also the numbers of referees. So it couldn't come at a better time, this one. We're all aware of those issues, and we've all got a role to play in that. And tonight is going to be really focused on how clubs can support on that. That's not to say it's your job only, but this is a club day, so we're going to look at how clubs can really push and work to support the improvement of the playing environment, particularly for our younger players. Okay, so what is respect? So we've got 4 areas written on there. To define respect, we're going to need to look at some other areas of the game too. So you can see on there, we've got respect, discipline, safeguarding, and refereeing. As a county FA, it's quite often for us to receive reports that are miscategorised. So they'll come in and it will say respect in bold capital letters and it's a safeguarding matter, or vice versa. It will go into Claire as a safeguarding concern and actually it's a low level respect concern. So we get a lot of stuff coming in miscategorised. So we feel it's really important to try and not inform you, not teach anyone to suck eggs, but to really clarify what each of the areas are, and also to accept that yes, they will overlap at times between one or two or even all of them. And also it's really important to just to outline that due to people's perceptions at the time, something might be in one category, but with the perceptions of someone else, a different referee, a different coach, a different player, it actually might move it into another area. So a real simple example of that is referee makes a poor decision, parent on the side shouts, "Ref, that was never a foul, you idiot." One referee might take that as, yeah, okay, I don't need that, but I'm just going to let that slide. Another might take offence to that and report that. So one would be a respect concern. One might move into discipline if it's considered to be through the threshold. So we're going to work through those 4 areas and we're going to define, explain how to report them. As I've said earlier, it's really important that issues are reported correctly because that helps to get them dealt with quickly and effectively. And it's really important for us at the County FA, if we can strike while the iron's hot and get the information we need, it's so much easier for us to follow up on stuff. What happens is if it takes a week, 2 weeks for it to get to the right person, people are less likely to then go through the full process with us and send the information we need and attend hearings if needed and so on. So it's really, really important that they're reported in the correct ways. And the second part of that is we need to be able to monitor and track stuff. If things aren't getting reported to the right place, again, that makes it really difficult for us to spot trends and see things that are happening consistently, particularly around specific teams or specific people. So that is why we're going to run through those 4 areas, and that's why my colleagues are on tonight, because they're much more knowledgeable in those areas than me. So firstly, we're going to move to safeguarding, and I'm going to pass over to Claire, who is our designated safeguarding officer. She's going to quickly run through kind of a definition and how to report.
Right, yes, thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, safeguarding is a bit of a buzzword. A lot of people will message me and say that it's a safeguarding issue, but actually it doesn't fit into that threshold of safeguarding at all. Safeguarding will be about abuse, so types of abuse, and we've got the types of abuse listed there, which you... Oh, what's happened?
Going on here. Someone's taking control of the presentation.
Oh no! Well, it wasn't me.
That'll teach me to not turn that off. Carry on, Claire. Carry on.
Yeah, I will say. Yeah. Everybody here, or most people here, will have done the welfare officer workshop, or certainly have done a safeguarding course of some description. So the types of abuse in safeguarding will be known to you. You'll understand that. But maybe you don't know the process that works at the FA. So in the FA, there is myself as a designated safeguarding officer, and I basically act as a conduit between information that comes from clubs and information that will then go, I will pass it on to somebody else. Myself, I don't actually have an awful lot of statutory powers within the FA to be able to implement actions. I have to use other colleagues and other groups to do that. So if I get a safeguarding concern... Oh, bye, Andrew. Yeah, so if I get a safeguarding concern and it does meet that threshold, I will fill in an online form. It's called an ELSA referral, which goes to FA case management. They will look at the information and they will decide if it meets their thresholds. If they decide that it does, they could implement a suspension on that person and then investigate and take action accordingly. But their thresholds are very specific around safeguarding and abuse. They are not interested in things that they feel that should be being dealt with by the club or could be being dealt with through discipline. They're very clear on the fact that their capacity limits them to it being about abuse. So if it's something that might be go to the police or to social care, that's where the FA safeguarding team will get involved. So that's how the thresholds work within safeguarding. So it is important that when people are bandying the term safeguarding around, that it actually is a safeguarding concern. what we do on every week, we have a meeting. I have a meeting with the refereeing section and the discipline section, and we look at the cases that have come in that are poor practice, that have been reported as poor practice, to see what is the appropriate action to take. And I know that Aaron's going to talk through refereeing and discipline as part of that as well. But we do get together once a week to look at all of those. So often Monday morning, lots of cases in, Tuesday, lots of cases in, and then through the course of the week, we'll be looking at the action and where it's appropriate for that to go to. And then, yeah, we're also going to be looking at what clubs themselves can do with regards to respect and poor practice concerns as well. Tom, was there anything else that I was to? No,
I just want to emphasise on that. So obviously, with areas around abuse, if the child is at immediate risk, it needs to be reported immediately to the police. Poor practice, which we've kind of settled on as not meeting the standards required from a safeguarding point of view. If you have concerns around that, the way to report that is through our poor practice form. And just from sitting in on those meetings, it is very, very common for that spreadsheet to be full of respect issues that aren't safeguarding poor practice, which means we're adding processes in, slowing us down from acting and getting onto those as swiftly as we'd like to. So really important that safeguarding is categorised correctly and kind of reported in the correct manner. Thank you, Claire. I just
want to add just one final thing, which I think is really important, is that I am around for advice if people want to know what to do about something. So please still don't hesitate to get in touch with me if you need some help or advice on how to deal with the case specifically as well.
Claire, a light bulb just gone off in my head, and I remember a conversation we had at the end of last week that you wanted to touch briefly on emotional abuse and when it is and when it isn't.
Yes, so emotional abuse, I get a lot of things that are sent to me either by parents or by coaches, actually normally by parents to be fair, saying that something has happened within a club or a game. Say, for example, a child isn't getting as much playing time as other people in the team are, and they're reporting that as emotional abuse. Now, I think that people here would understand the complete difference between emotional abuse, which is a systematic tearing down of somebody's defences, weakening them, pushing them into being unable to think for themselves, being unable to cope with everyday life, and a child not getting as much game time as another child. So this is why we want to be really clear about abuse being a systematic process that happens when somebody is in power and control of another person, rather than it being some ad hoc or one-off elements that might happen within football on the field. Those things could be poor practice. Those things, it might be that we need a conversation with the club about, but it's not emotional abuse.
Thank you, Claire. OK, we're going to jump on to discipline.
Excellent. So just to sort of clarify a few bits on discipline, obviously I work quite closely with the discipline department naturally within my role. So yeah, I just thought I'd go through a few bits here. So the simple stuff, yellow and red card offences, you know, that's generally if a yellow or red card's being shown, that is down to the referee to then deal with that and report that. We get a lot of sort of duplicate reports, as in, you know, this player did this, and actually it turns out the referee's already sent him off and already dealt with it. So there'll be sort of no further action, and again, it's just duplicating that workload. The next bit, which is obviously quite important. So if there's any, you know, sort of racist, sexist, homophobic, or, you know, sort of any other comments which are inappropriate, it could be gestures as well. The referee can report that, but if you as a club or people at that club hear those comments, then obviously it's your guys' duty to report that as well. So it can be other incidents. So if a player, say, committed an act of violent conduct that the referee hasn't seen, and again that can be taken further, and a club can report that in the right manner. So we sort of touch a little bit on obviously how to report that. As you can see there, it's just the club secretary to email discipline@sheffieldfa.com. They will then send a form out which you can then basically put all your statements on all at once. Again, a common thing we get is we get 6 or 7 parents all emailing separately their different version of events, and sometimes they do just get lost within that email trail. The way our emails work, 6 emails might go to the discipline department, one of the Robs, but one might come to me, and I deal with that, and it can get quite confusing. So that's why the FA have brought in this form that all statements will go on all at the same time. So it's a club secretary's sort of responsibility there to get all those in together and put it all on one. And that's purely so nothing gets missed. It's not from a workload point of view or anything like that. It is purely so nothing gets missed. And I think that's probably the most sort of important thing. The next thing to sort of mention is if you as a club or someone within your club is wanting to report something, then if it does lead to a charge to the opposition, say manager, player, whoever, then you may have to attend a personal hearing, and that includes under 18s if they're witnesses to that event. And that's purely to give everybody sort of a fair chance. There's always two sides to every story. There's always something that's been sort of missed off one side and we find out from the other. And I'm sure if the shoe was on the other foot and your child or you as a manager were accused of something that you didn't think was fully true, you'd want to defend yourself in that point as well. So that's why that process is there. But again, we get a lot of stuff in where it's, I want to complain about this, and this, it's disgraceful, they've done this and everything. And then we go, brilliant, get all your stuff in, which to do. And then we have to go, actually, their sort of counter argument is towards this, and we need you to come and sort of come to a personal hearing and sort of defend what's happened. And that's when everything goes quiet. And when you're not willing to do that, essentially the people sort of get away with it, and that's not obviously what we want. We want to have an environment where if there is things that are going above and beyond that, what is accepted in a game, that is dealt with appropriately. And attending a personal hearing is really important. I know it can seem quite daunting, but it really isn't. It's not what you think it is. It's not people in the suits and blazers and everything. It's not like that. It's a lot more relaxed. We try and make it as friendly as we can, especially for under 18s as well. If the referees are under 18 or just referees in general, get support from myself as well. So that's sort of the process on discipline.
Perfect. Banner, just to clarify, to make this really clear, if the referee's dealt with an incident in the game, unless the referees miss something, there's no reason to be sending additional discipline reports to essentially referee the game post-match and sending that in, is there?
Yeah, correct. So if a referee report comes in and there is an element of doubt, or if there is further information what our discipline department or myself need, then we will get in touch with the opposition club and sort of get their observations. So it'd just be a quick email saying, we've had this reporting, can you just give us the incident, your observations on the 75th minute, and we would chase you for that. And that's when obviously you can provide anything. But if the referee's dealt with it, then that's sort of done, and we will deal with that appropriately.
Excellent. Okay, on to refereeing, or referees, sorry.
Yeah, so obviously it's quite a controversial topic at the moment, and I get a lot of sort of complaints about referees, sort of regarding their performance or conduct, and it's sort of, again, just to sort of clarify how that process works, basically. So there is a form just to fill out. It's a really simple form, really easy. Email support@sheffieldfa.com, and then I will send you a link to that reporting form. It should be filled out by the club secretary or manager who was present at the game. Again, we know club secretaries aren't going to be at every single game if they've got 10 teams, but obviously the manager in charge of that should be. Again, if you wanted to submit statements from parents or other witnesses, players, anything like that, we'd like to do it through this form, and that gives you the chance to put attachments on. And again, it's all there at once, and it's not got, nothing's going to get lost. Obviously, with referees, there's going to be decisions that you disagree with. That's always going to happen in football. I think I could probably show 10 clips of yellow card or red card challenges, and it'd probably split the room and people would disagree. If the complaint against the referee is due to performance, all I ask is that you just give time, details, examples, and ideally where the referee is wrong in law. So if they've used, say, a sin bin incorrectly, or if they've sent somebody off and actually it's a yellow card offence, stuff like that. So and again, they get dealt with. So quite a common complaint we sort of get in, and a lot of criticism we get is we don't do anything about referee complaints, and they sort of get away with it and it's swept under the carpet. And it couldn't be further from the truth. You know, I'm really big on sort of developing the referees. So you're not going to kick someone out of a club when they get one red card. It's exactly the same with the referee. If they have one bad performance, that's not going to get them kicked off the list. But we do have opportunities to develop them, and that's what we need that evidence for. If we see the same names cropping up, you know, within a short period of time, then that's when we have our own internal thresholds that we deal with those internally. And ultimately, if it got sort of that serious, it would lead to the referee being refused their registration, which again, it's never happened, thankfully, touch wood. But that is the last threshold. Obviously, a lot would have to happen to get to that point, but it does get dealt with, and conversations would happen between me and the referee should the performance be subpar on a regular basis. But we do need that information in the first place. We do need that evidence. So that's sort of it around sort of referees, really.
I know. Just really, I want to hammer home referee complaints, and we're covering it because it needs to be covered. Should only be reserved for kind of consistently poor conduct during a game.
Yeah, so
poor performance or poor conduct.
Yeah, so what I would probably just clarify on the two is performance would be around sort of their fitness levels or their decision making. You know, they've given 3 penalties to one side and not the other, and you know, I don't think any referee is biased. I really don't. I think there's some that are not to the required standard at certain levels, but that's a completely different story. So performance is like things like fitness, things like decision making. Conduct is more their mannerisms. So if you're not happy with the way they are speaking to your players or management, things like that, or the way they're behaving, if they turn up 3 minutes before kick-off and kick off late and everyone's ready to go, that's like obviously the start of it, and then they continue to be have a poor attitude during the game. Again, it's the main sort of phrasing is poor overall performance or conduct. You know, each referee is allowed to have a bad day and have the odd decision or whatever, but an overall performance is over the 90, 80, 70 minutes, whatever is played.
So just to hammer that home, you need to put in a complaint about a referee, and we see this week in, week out. It cannot be that the referee awarded a penalty against your team in the 89th minute. It is not a valid complaint. It is not a discipline issue. So we just really want to hammer home the difference. It has to be an overall poor performance, or their conduct falls well below the expected standards. Anything other than that, specific decisions or upset with small elements of the game, it does not warrant a report to come into County FA. Yeah,
I think one last point before we move on, mate, and it'll be let's judge what level they're at as well. If you're refereeing sort of under 10s, under 11s football, you're not going to get Michael Oliver and Howard Webb at those games. You're going to get a trainee referee who's learning the trade, or an older referee who's just helping out just because they love the game. So just be mindful of what expectations you have before you do have that complaint as well. But that's it from me.
Wicked, thank you. So on to respect. So the dictionary definition of respect is have due regard to someone's feelings, wishes or rights. The simple football definition we're going to use throughout tonight is create a fun, safe and inclusive environment. Anything to the detriment of that will be considered a respect issue. So anything that starts to affect the environment that we're creating is a respect issue. We do have ways of reporting, and there's only one essentially. So I have got the discrimination bit on there, but I'm going to skim over that for now. The one way to report respect issues is through the full-time respect scores. And I appreciate that at times it can be a bit frustrating to do, and there's a bit of a feeling, or rumour's the wrong word, that nothing ever gets done with them. But it helps us to monitor and spot trends. And without that, it's very difficult for us to act. So we've covered about thresholds in safeguard and discipline. Respect issues that haven't breached a threshold into a discipline matter or a safeguarding matter. And therefore, we can't sanction people. So we can't suspend someone because they chirped at a referee once last weekend, for example, unless it passes into a threshold that it becomes a discipline or a safeguarding matter. So it's really important that we can distinguish between that, the respect, discipline and safeguarding and refereeing issues. So it's not a governance issue. It is common, and we'll wear it, we'll take this, that it is common to see statements around the county FA don't do anything, the FA don't do anything. It's tough for us to act if we don't get the information. Okay, so the scores coming in and the comments alongside the respect scores are really, really crucial for us. It allows us to spot the clubs that are consistently getting low scores, and also with some information around what issues that they're having problems with. It is a development issue for us to then go and support that club and help them to change the behaviours that are obviously causing them problems. So that is the only way to report your respect issues. We get loads and loads of emails, but that is the most efficient and best way to get the issues reported. We know it can be easy to put the score just high enough that it's not a problem because you don't want to follow it up, and not to put the comments in or be specific, but that defeats the purpose of it, and it makes our job at county level quite difficult because we then can't see actually dog and duck reserves. Every other week we're seeing a low spectator score for that club. If we see that, that is when we can step in and support, not sanction but support. So if you believe there's been an issue, whether that's the team coaching staff or it's been reported to the club, it needs to go on there on the scores and provide us with some information, names, times, words, actions that we used, so we can start to build up a picture. Unfortunately, for one-off incidents, unless they go into the threshold of discipline, it's unlikely that we're going to be there to support immediately. What we'll be looking to do is support the clubs and teams that consistently have problems, and that is how we can that's how we can be most effective. So in short, if we aren't made aware of the issues, we can't act on it. So it's really important that we're hammering that message home to our team officials to do the respect scores post game, even if it does take that 5-10 minutes and you have to go that extra mile because actually you were not very happy with an opposition spectator today or opposition manager. Take the time to put the scores in and put the comments in so we can see and build up those pictures. Like I said, we will directly target the clubs that are consistently facing issues, so we need that information. What we're going to try and cover tonight, and the reason it's a club update and not a league update or just a general respect update, is how clubs can embed respect to hopefully prevent you from ever getting to the point where you're getting a call or a visit from someone from the county FA around one of your teams or your club having consistent respect issues. So we're going to look at how you can manage those kind of sporadic issues that dad got frustrated one day, or the coach actually, he'd had a bad day at work the day before, he didn't get much sleep and he was a bit frustrated on the day, and he's chirped at a referee or said something he shouldn't, that's maybe a one-off, and how you can manage that in-house to make sure that that doesn't become a consistent behaviour that's adopted throughout that team and throughout the club. So that's what we're going to be aiming to do tonight. So hopefully there we've kind of distinguished between those 4 areas, and we've just got one more slide. It's a bit of a none of the above, and it's just a few examples of stuff that we get that doesn't really fit in any of there. So one that's common we've covered already. A referee gives a one-off decision you disagree with. It does not constitute an overall poor performance. We get a lot of reports that come in like that, making a full complaint about a referee based off one individual error, might not have been an error, one individual decision. So that is none of the above, doesn't fit in any. Being beaten by a team badly, unfortunately, is not a respect issue. So we get this quite a lot over the phone. We played this team at the weekend. They beat us 10-0. They didn't show us any respect throughout. Although it is a frustrating experience, and it is a totally separate issue. It's not a lack of respect for them to keep all their players on the pitch if they're the rules in that league, and they can't stop their players scoring. They can't stop their goalkeeper from saving shots. So we get that quite often, that it's the conversation starts with, it was a total lack of respect that it's 10-0. Unfortunately, it isn't in that kind of scenario. If there was other stuff going on around that, they were taking the mick out of your players, they were being rude, the parents were jeering you up, then it does become one. But just being beaten badly on the day, unfortunately, it just doesn't constitute a respect issue. Another one we get is around, it gets reported as over celebration or celebrating in our face. It happens quite regularly that we get reports that, oh, they scored a last minute winner and all the parents were jumping around and celebrating, the kids were going mad. Of course they were. That's why we play the game. Imagine being a 9, 10, 11-year-old player and you've just scored the winner and you don't know the context of that team. That might be their first ever win, first win of the season, been battered last week. That could be an unbelievable moment for that group. It's not a respect issue. Again, if they were running over and knee sliding in front of the opposition coach and giving it stacks to the opposition parents and making a song and dance about that, then it would become one. But just celebrating the win or celebrating a big moment in a game is not a respect issue. So they were just three that we really wanted to clarify and hammer home. Okay, so this back over to you, the crowd. So you should have your chat box. Just fire away if you can. Just some good, what does a good environment look like on a training and match day? Anything you like in the chat, just some examples of what it looks like when the environment is really good. See if we get any. Struggling. I'll give it another 30 seconds. So we're just looking, what does it look like? What does a good environment look like? Think about your environments that you create at your club. I think my chat box must be broken. I'll get us started. There we go. Brilliant. Love that from Rachel. Supporters encouraging both teams. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. Big fan of that. So applauding positive play, applauding effort from both teams and not jumping on any negatives. Friendly to opposition parents and players. Brilliant. All coaches, players supporting, enjoying the game. That's why our junior players are there. They're there to enjoy it. Back to what we said at the start of respect. Anything to the detriment of that is causing us an issue. Again, lots of words around encouragement and clapping. Sally saying kids smiling. Yeah, I think that's the definition, isn't it? When you see kids leaving with a smile on their face, that means they've enjoyed the day. They've played in a good environment. Yeah, some good stuff going in there. So that's what a good environment looks like. So we've got some stuff there on the screen as well around the we only do positive, but some of the stuff you've said there, you can see the kids celebrating a goal, coach and player interaction, all smiles, all positive body language, the parents there. So loads of good examples there. Brilliant. So skip along to the next one. What does a bad environment look like at training and match days? So we've covered the good. What does a bad one look like? I'll give it 30 seconds. Negative shouting, unhappy, absolutely. That's your telltale sign. Tears, not happy, swearing, screaming, shouting negative comments, absolutely. Ref getting abused from irate spectators, abuse to referees, kids with the head down. I think that's really, really telling one there, Kay. The body language of children, you can tell if they're uncomfortable in the environment that they're in. Heads down, shoulders down, not engaging with the game, not smiling, not enjoying it. Yeah, following the referee after the game, putting players and officials down, all the stuff we absolutely don't want to see. And just to be clear, some of those things said in there would go into a discipline threshold. Okay, some would come under the respect threshold. So people on this call, it's you know what a good environment looks like and you know what a bad environment looks like. So the most important question is, What happens when the environment isn't a good one, and how does it affect the players and the referees? So that's again open to the chat. What happens when the environment shifts into that bad one, and how does it affect players and referees? Yeah, some powerful stuff going in there. So the lack of enjoyment goes out the window. Massive issue at the minute. Referees don't want to referee. They won't referee certain teams and clubs because they know what's going to happen if they do go there. Players getting upset, referees leaving the game. The one that gets me the most is that when kids don't want to play anymore, when they lose that enjoyment, when it's just actually the enjoyment of playing isn't worth it because the environment that they're being exposed to, and it might not be at your club, it might be when you go away, is making it just a horrible experience. I think something about anxiety there again, absolutely. So it impacts the children, parents, the coaches, the referees, and club officials no end. And like Estelle said, Liz has said there, the fun and development's taken away. So we know in this group the importance of creating a good environment. We know what the consequences might be of a bad one. So hopefully that's going to help us guide through kind of the next slide, which is, if you've got a moment now, you can either stick your hand up or you can share in there. What good work are you already doing at your clubs? What are you doing to ensure that your environment at your club is the best it can be? There's loads of good stuff going out there. We obviously get out and about, less so since COVID, but before. And we see lots of good work, but just now's a good time, if you can, just to share some of that. And if you want to stick your hand up and speak through it, please do feel free. Let's see what else. What's that for? I can hear some typing, so it must be at least one person about to put something in. I'll wait for that to go in and then I'll start running through some of the examples we've got. Brilliant. So Kay's got an example there of sharing positivities with all the club, not just in the teams. I assume you mean kind of best practice and good examples of when teams have shown good respect or something's happened during a game. Players helped an injured player from the opposition team, or they've applauded them off, those type of things. That's great to share that. I know the Sheffield Junior League do shout outs like that as well. Sending out the respect posters, Jill's put. We get parents, supporters and club officials to sign our respect code of conduct at training, and following on from matches, we ask the kids what they thought were brilliant. So the code of conduct, which we'll come on to in a minute. Respect focus on different categories. Oh, brilliant. So Richard has got a process around having a different respect focus week to week, one around refs, coaches and so on. Really, really like that. Mrs. Montgomery, no first name, but that is a fantastic one. By ensuring that the people at your club, the adults at your club, are role models, that's a massive, massive way of embedding respect. Because if the adults and the role models for your children are behaving in the expected way, that's going to rub off on those players. Parent and coaches up. So like that again, go links back to your recruitment by ensuring that when people are recruited into the club, they get to understand what the club's about, what behaviours are expected. So fantastic. Making training fun for the kids, absolutely. That's a massive, massive part of it. What else we got? Respect barriers. So all the basic stuff, respect barriers, CWO in each team to help kids, parents and coaches all sign a code of conduct. Brilliant. Mini code of conduct briefings with teams. Fantastic. So there's some good stuff going on. And I like some, I might have to come back and speak to a few people about some of the other areas that you've put in there, because there's some interesting stuff. I like the respect theme, very interesting. So we know a lot of the stuff that already happens, your respect barriers, your handshakes, positivity campaigns, your social media campaigns. We only do positive. your signs and stuff around your playing areas. So there's lots and lots of good work that goes in to creating and maintaining those positive environments. So we're going to move on now onto how we might look to embed it a little bit deeper and to support you as clubs, like we said, to manage those sporadic incidences to make sure they don't snowball into something a little bit bigger. So we're going to shift the focus onto the clubs and how you can support the Respect programs. So next screen is going to have a couple of, oh no, Molly, I'm so sorry, I've started doing the next bit. Molly, you're in. So we've covered Respect. We've covered what Respect is and isn't, and now we're going to look at just a little Respect program that's going to be rolling out this season.
You said we did earlier this year. We produced a youth feedback form, which a lot of people took part in, to understand the current climate in football in order to make positive changes moving forward. So from the feedback form, it was evident that we needed to do something for Respect. So we've put a process in place which will be tackling issues that fall below the safeguarding and discipline threshold, which has been covered already. So as Tom said, creating the right environment for players, both on and off the pitch, is so important to ensure that football is fun, safe and inclusive. So Respect aims to tackle the mass dropout of both players and referees from football due to abuse. So the Respect campaign is in place to ensure that everyone involved in football is playing their part to create a positive experience for the players. So we've had many conversations with youth leagues, and it was clear that everybody was on board with creating a new initiative, which we're hoping to launch this season. So as part of the new initiative, there's going to be two parts to it. So a reward and an intervention. So the key part of the initiative, as Tom has already touched on, is all about ensuring that full-time fair play respect scores are taken seriously, and in order for us to understand the positive and negative behaviours that happen on a match day. So obviously at the county FA, there's only so much that we can do. It's down to you guys on a match day to ensure that you're reporting any incidents that happen, and even any positive behaviours that are going on. If you send them through on your full-time scores, then that's fantastic. We can then monitor that. So as part of the new initiative, we wanted to ensure that we reward teams that consistently achieving high scores every week and give them more an incentive to do well. But obviously the teams that always do well will continue to do that. But we wanted to make sure we put something in place to tackle teams that consistently achieving low scores, like Tom's previously said. So as part of the new campaign, so for the reward, we're pleased to announce that the Respect Team of the Month is back for youth leagues. So as part of the campaign, we've been able to partner up with all the professional clubs across the county to launch the new Respect campaign. So the teams on board are Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, Sheffield United Football Club, Barnsley, Doncaster Rovers and also Rotherham United. So as part of the reward scheme, teams that are achieving high scores will be put into a draw to win tickets to go to a game. So the winning team would receive 16 children's tickets and 3 adults tickets, as well as a chance to go pitch side and also hopefully be announced on the tannoy for obviously the great behaviour that they've been doing each week. So the Respect scores are going to be based on player behaviour, manager behaviour and spectator behaviour. So the top, as I said, the top teams will be put into a draw. So this for the September results, for example, we've had around 20 to 30 that have got 100%, which is fantastic. But obviously not every single person would, not every single team would be rewarded. Unfortunately, we've only got 1 complimentary tickets per month. So we will be publicising the ones that have won and that have been put into the draw as well. So as I mentioned, so there's 2 parts to it. So that's the positives and the reward. Now it's the intervention, which is the stuff that obviously we've touched on tonight with what Tom's already mentioned, and this is the stuff that falls below the safeguarding and discipline threshold, and something that we desperately need to put in place. So we've now got a 5-step process in place which all the youth leagues are on board with. So these are for teams that are consistently achieving low scores. So each month leagues will send across their full-time results to myself and other members of the county FA, and they'll put in there a summary of any instance that might have occurred. So as part of the 5-step process, it's put in place to understand reasons for low scores. So we want to work with clubs. As Tom said, it's not about us going in there and saying, right, you need to do better at this, this and this. It's working with clubs to understand what they can then do to make things better and more positive at their club. So each case that we deal with will obviously be different. So some might have been incidents with players, some might have been incidents with spectators. Each incident will be dealt with differently. So for example, if the score is low each week because it's down to a group of parents that are consistently shouting at the referee, but the shouting isn't bad enough to fall under the safeguarding and discipline threshold, so it's not going to cover an E20 as Claire previously mentioned, then this might be detected through full-time scores. So if it's like Tom said, somebody's just, they've not put in a report necessarily, but it is in there and they are getting low scores, this should be picked up through the average for that month. So if it's a case where it is down to a group of parents, we'll ring the club in the first instance and speak to the secretary, the team manager, and just come up with ways that they can deal with that group of parents in order to make the environment a bit more positive, and for them to understand the implications of what it is that they're doing. So they might not know that them shouting onto pitch is actually affecting the children's behaviour. They might not know how it's affecting the referee necessarily. So it's just a case of us going in there, having a phone call with the club and trying to come up with ways that we can get parents to buy into what we're trying to do and making sure that they're aware of the Respect campaign. So if the behaviour continues, then the next step would be to have a written letter to the club and just give them a little warning in order to try and improve that behaviour. So the third step in this instance would be a workshop with the parents, which hopefully Aaron, our referee development officer, would be able to go in and do a workshop with the parents, and it'd be an interactive workshop. For example, it'd show an incident on the board. Can you say if this is a yellow or red card? Majority of people will say different. Therefore, it's just showing the parents how difficult it is for a referee on a match day to make that decision. It's not as easy as it necessarily sounds. You going out there on a match day, you've got everybody around you, all the players, all the parents shouting onto pitch and stuff. They're in a workshop where they've got loads of time to think, they've not got anything around them, and they're still maybe getting that decision wrong. It just shows the parents then that it's not as easy as it seems. So hopefully by this stage the behaviour will have improved and we won't be going on to the next steps, but all parties will, if it continues, all parties will be asked to come to a meeting and actions will be put in place moving forward. For example, some parents may be stopped from coming to the games. The final step, which we hope will never happen, because this essentially just affects the children, would be the league will have the power to then stop the team from playing in that league. So they'd have to go and find another league, or the team would fold because the players would probably go elsewhere. So that pretty much covers everything that I've got for the initiative. So I think Tom's going to go into some scenarios on the next slides.
Perfect, thank you, Molly. So just really want to emphasise that the full-time scores are going to really drive and lead on that. The end game, the ace in the leagues, in the league rules, is that they can choose who it is and isn't in their league. So we're hoping that with that process, we can really start to push and support clubs that are consistently having issues. But it is totally relying on us getting that information via the respect scores, and we'll be working really closely with the leagues on that. So, embedding respect. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to rattle through as quickly as I can. We've defined respect, what it is, what it isn't. We've talked about positive environment, negative environment, and the effects. We've also talked about what the county FA and leagues are working on at the moment. So I want to shift that focus back onto the clubs and how we embed that. So on the screen now, we've got a couple of scenarios. Really basic kind of respect issues. And I'm just hoping someone will be willing to put their hand up in the chat and just run us through how, off the top of your head now, how you, as in your role at your club, would deal with one of those scenarios. So how would you deal with it? Kind of what process would you follow, and what would the outcome be based off one of those scenarios? So I'll read through them while I wait for someone to be brave and stick their hand up. So during the weekend fixtures, club officials have witnessed the under-11 manager of their team consistently questioning decisions of the referee. The behaviour emboldened the players, who also began to moan at the referee. Scenario 2, a parent from your team has reported that another parent from your club is continually encouraging players from your club to be aggressive and foul opposition players. So is anyone willing to stick their hand up for me and kind of run through, if that happened at your club, how would you manage it? See if anyone's feeling brave. Rachel, you want to unmute yourself? Thank you.
Apologies, I'm not going to put my video on because I've got some internet problems, so apologies, I wouldn't have my video on.
No, it's not a problem at all.
I don't mind doing the last one
Yeah.
because that's not an uncommon one, shall we say. So I would take a number of different tactics. So I'd definitely talk to the parent. I would probably go along to a training session just to get a feel for that team. I probably already know the coaches anyway, so I do try and make myself as visible as possible around the club, which I think helps. I'd perhaps even go to one of the games. And then I'd do one of our feedback sessions with the kids. So periodically I go and spend some time with the kids and let them share what they like about the team, what they don't like, what are the positives, etc. And try to actually find out whether there is something going on or whether it's a one-off. And depending on what the outcome of that would depend what I did next.
Brilliant. Just, I know the answer's yes to this already, but would you wait to be contacted by county FA or your league before you actioned on that, or if you got that information from another parent, you'd action that straight away?
Yeah, many of those things would never get anywhere near the county FA. So you know, I've had a standard Monday for me. I've probably got about 5 or 6 things I need to deal with from the weekend. I would guess most of them will never go near the FA. Okay,
very good. And does the club have kind of an agreed process, or is this your process that you're working through?
Not all of it's documented. Some of it is, shall we just say, work in progress. I've been here about a year, so they will be documented at a point, but it's not as strongly documented as I'd like it to be. But I think coaches are starting to, the bit about coaches come and talk to me first before you go running off doing something that maybe is not helpful, that's definitely fairly well embedded now.
Brilliant. And then final question. Either way, so whether it was a one-off or it's actually proved to be a consistent issue, what would the consequences be for that parent at your club?
So we'd have a conversation with them to explain the impact, why it's not helpful, all of those sort of things. And I'd hope that in most instances, actually, it does improve. They don't realise the impact it's having. If it got further than that, we'd consider asking them not to be part of the club, because it's just, it's back to seeing those behaviours. If you see those behaviours, everybody think that behaviour's okay at the club, and we don't want it to be that way. But
yeah, brilliant.
In most instances, it wouldn't get to that.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Rachel. Rich, you've got your hand up as well. Do you want to unmute?
Hiya. On the scenario 1, we would speak to the manager, remind him of the code of conduct that he signed to say that he will respect referees and respect decisions by the referee, and kind of go through the fact of how old the referee could be. At under 11s, it could be 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. Reiterate that they are still children that they're shouting at and abusing, and remind him that he is representing the club. And speak. I'm a former referee a long time ago, but I kind of defend the referees more than I possibly should do sometimes. But especially with the younger referees, if I'm at a game, I'll attend as many games as I can. I live near enough at the ground, so I do wander around on a Saturday and a Sunday to speak to parents and managers, make myself visible. And I will speak to the referees after the game if they've had a particularly good game, or if I can point anything out that may assist them going forward. But I'll get at the end sometimes. If that had happened, I'd have probably brought the manager across as well and spoke to the referee with him to say, this is not right, this is not what you should have done, you should have respected the referee, and it's part of your code of conduct that you've signed at the beginning of the season. If I witness it more than one occasion, you will have a more severe conversation.
Okay, good stuff. I'm going to ask pretty similar questions to you. Would you wait in that instance to be contacted by your legal county FA to action? It sounds like you'd be straight on it.
No.
Yeah, perfect. And then I'm going to change the question slightly that Rachel had. If it wasn't you, if it was another club official, you were on holiday, they were taking the Saturday morning stroll and they saw it, would it be dealt with in the same way, or yes, could it be slightly differently dealt with at that in that moment?
Well, the committee members all work together, so we would speak to them and say, it would probably be brought to my attention as well, so I would have a conversation when I got back to make sure it's been dealt with and sorted. But yeah, they would all have the conversation with the manager and just explain, look, this is what you've done, you've signed this conduct. We're all behind that as a major thing with the club.
Brilliant. And then final bit, what would be end game there then? So referees, he's behaved in that manner on week 1, and week 4 you walk in again, same things happening. What would be kind of the next step for the club there?
We'd have a conversation and we'd arrange a meeting with myself and the club secretary or the chairman to go through the situation and reiterate what we expect as a manager to show respect to the referee and officials, and warn him with his future conduct. You know, we're quite happy to remove someone if it's continuous and they don't learn from the conversations we've had. If it's got to week 4, I've mentioned it twice. It's not 3 strikes and you're out, but it's 3 strikes and you get a more severe conversation warning him about his future conduct.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing, Rachel and Rich. That's brilliant. Sorry, that is the right slide. So really interesting. Great to hear the proactive nature of both of those conversations around what would happen. I think what I was trying to tease out was a little bit around, do clubs wait, and if they're not getting any phone calls or much discipline coming in, is it, oh, everything must be okay? And sometimes that isn't the case. It just means that things aren't being reported. Secondly, do you have a process, or, and both, as I've said earlier with people in this group, or are we reliant on your good work, if that makes sense, you managing that scenario correctly, or does your club have a process to work through that ensures that consistency and that understanding throughout your club officials, and therefore the transparency for kind of all your members, players, parents, coaches? And do you have kind of a set of consequences or an agreed process that respect issue 1, if we found actually that's proven, I saw you do it, is a reminder of the code of conduct and then it moves through? Or is it just case by case, knowing the person, knowing what support they need? And I guess that changes from club to club. So I just wanted to try and tease that out a little bit. So embedding respect, time to reflect. How do you ensure that the info around behaviour, respect and things like that, how do you ensure that info is dispersed to your members? I think a lot of the time we see things around code of conduct. It's good to hear them mentioned again. Good to hear that people are having to sign them at the start of the season. They're living and breathing documents that need to be worked towards at all times. They're not just sign and then put it in a drawer. Do Do your players, spectators and coaches understand the behaviours? So yet we're signing a code of conduct. How do we support them to understand that? How do we understand them how do we help them understand what it's all about? Does your club have those clear processes for when you do have a breach in terms of the expected behaviours? And do you know your club's current process for managing respect complaints made against members? So do you have one? If we approached you and said, John Smith has come up 3 times in respect scores and low scores, poor behaviour, do you have a process in place? Or again, is it just relying on you as knowledgeable people, good club officials going, right, we'll spring into action here? And do your members understand how to report respect issues too? So how you kind of ensure that info is dispersed is really, really crucial, and will help to embed respect within your clubs. So we've covered code of conducts. Most chart standard clubs will have them. So really key that they're embedded in every working part of the club. That is for your spectators, for your coaches and your parents. Spectators, coaches and players. For consistency more than anything, do any clubs, and you can go in the chat, you can stick your hand up, does anyone, I know we mentioned about signing them, do we have any other kind of ways that they're used, or any ways that you emphasize the codes of conduct? Is there anything to do with your signing on nights that's going on to help really hammer home the code of conduct? I'll keep talking, but if I do see anything in the chat, I will drop back on that. Right, where's my notes gone? Okay, so your ace to play, your kind of silver bullet as a club, in your constitution, you will, I'm 100% certain you will have something similar to this written, that you have the ability to expel members. Okay, now that is end game. That is something that none of us want to have to do, but you have got that. You've got that capability. It's your last resort. And I challenge you as clubs in terms of your embedding respect to have a process linked to respect that ends there. So rather than just talking about you can expel it, if they keep pushing our buttons, if they keep doing things that are wrong, we'll expel them. What about having a process that clearly outlines 1 breach, 2 breach, 3 breach, 4 breach, and you're out, for example, or 3 strikes and you're out, as Rich has said. So on screen now, and this is not the answer, this is not me saying go away and do this now, this is an example of a process that you could build into your constitution, vote it in at an SGM or at your AGM at the end of the season, a step process for your parents or spectators that ends, unfortunately, with them being expelled from the club. So a real clear process that you can be really transparent with. You can share that with all your members. When they sign on, they understand the club rules. So the first would be a warning and a reminder of the code of conduct they've signed. If there's another issue, they then can't attend a fixture. Another issue, a multiple game suspension for that parent or spectator. And the end game is the parent is expelled from the club. Okay. And again, with a player, could be a youth player. So obviously we need to approach that differently. If you've had a respect issue that's happened at club level, speak to the player and the guardian and outline the issue. Club to request that the player and the guardian complete the respect e-module. Step 3 would be a player respect report. So they have them at school. It might be that after each game, the coach fills in a little respect report for the player, and they review it with mum or dad or whoever's with them after each game. Step 4, reduce playing minutes, which is a really, really serious kind of action to take for a young player. And then step 5, a game suspension, etc. And you can take that where you will. So there's 2 examples of how you might build that into your club's structure, into your club's rules, so that you have got a clear procedure and policy that you can point to when managing those situations. And again, these are more around situations that you're nipping in the bud at club level, rather than when it's gotten to us, when it's been consistent low scores that have brought the county FA and the league into the picture. So we're hoping that as clubs you're managing that and getting onto it as quickly as you can to prevent that becoming a consistent embedded behaviour within your club. So like I said, that's an example. That's not saying go away, take that and stick it straight in your constitution. Definitely have a think about what works for you, what works for your club, and where you would take that. I'm going to go on to the next slide and then I'll just take a few questions. Again, another example for one maybe on match days. So again, an agreed set of rules, an agreed flow process for your coaches that with parent and respect, a parent or spectator breaches, their first step is they'll go over and warn the parents. Parents, you've all signed up for the code of conduct. Please stop shouting at the referee or questioning his decisions. If it happens again during this game, we will actually ask you to leave. And that would be step 2. We're going to ask you to leave the spectator area for the remainder of the match. You may pick your children up at the end, for example. So by having that in place and sharing it with all your coaches, they feel comfortable that this is a whole club approach. Everyone associated with the club knows that that's your approach. There's no hiding place from it, and it's really clear for everyone. And again, it might be for your players. Your coach has a clear flow process of player A has just shouted at the referee. I'm going to pull that player to the side. I'm going to speak to them and remind them about the code of conduct and the expected respect behaviours I expect to see as a coach. Step 2, if it happens again, I'm going to whip them off for a few minutes. When they go back on, if they do it again, they'll be removed from the pitch permanently. Again, that is an example, but that might be something that you as a club want to decide on to create for yourself. So every single coach is singing off the same hymn sheet when it comes to respect issues with your parents or spectators or with players. So there's just 2 examples. Reporting systems, another area we just want to cover quickly. I'm conscious of the time. We'll get this done in the next 10 minutes. How do you ensure, well, in fact, I'm going to rephrase that. Not every respect issue is heard by a referee or by a club official. And linking back to trying to prevent stuff from snowballing and being one-offs and rolling into embedded behaviour, we recommend that as a club that you'd have some sort of reporting system. If you're lucky enough to have your own site and you can stick those things up, so posters, barcodes, QR codes, sorry, around your site to make it quick and simple for people. If they see something that they don't agree with, they're unhappy with, they believe that it's not up to the expectations that they thought they would see on the day in that environment, they can quickly go and scan the code, or you can send the link out to the opposition team, for example, and have it in your parents' WhatsApp group, a simple electronic Google form, which you can see on the next page. That would be name if you want to put it in, what game it was, what the date was, and please outline your issue today. If you then have all the committee members receiving that so they can see the responses, you can work through that at your committee meetings, or if you believe it to be quite serious, you can action that straight away. But it's a good way of collecting that information that maybe would slip under, you wouldn't notice, or because no one's heard it from your end or the referee hasn't heard it, that those little incidents that are 1s and 2s and every now and then become more consistent, and it will give you a chance to see that happening before it is reflected in your respect scores. So I'm more than happy if any club want a form like that. I will sit and make it with you. I can make it for you and send it to you. So more than happy to do that for you, but we're really keen for you to try and gather that information quickly so that you can act on it as quickly as you can. Not all of them will be correct. You'll get frivolous stuff. You'll get stuff that you think, why are you sending that in? But for the 1 or 2 where it says John Smith's dad was swearing at the referee today, that's something based on the examples of Richard and Rachel that you as a club could then action straight away. So we're really keen, if you can, to try and have some form of reporting process so that if people aren't happy with the behaviour expected at your events or games or training sessions, that's reported in a similar way to safeguarding, but obviously it is a separate issue. And again, what I want to just really hammer home there is we're not trying to shirk the responsibility that we don't want to pick this up. What we're trying to do is get it to a point where you're able to nip stuff in the bud before it does become a bigger issue. So we're not trying to shirk that responsibility. We are more than willing to assist in any of those areas and support you if you do have issues. We are more than happy to come and support you on that. So they're the 4 areas that we just wanted to cover today around embedding respect. So firstly, having it in your club philosophy. So all the stuff we spoke about, creating a good environment, what does a good environment look like, that type of stuff, your recruitment, your respect banners, all of that stuff, making sure that that's embedded in your day-to-day club life. Transparent and clear rules for your members. So we really recommend that you have a look at your club rules and policies around how you deal with issues of respect from people and members at your club. And again, having clear procedures, so consequences at your club if you breach them. This is what will happen. And then finally, embedding some form of way for people to report incidences of poor respect straight to you as a club on the day, so that you're able to collect that information and monitor it at your end as well. So I'm going to stop there. We've got a few questions. So I'll just go through the chat just to see the questions. Robert's just replied to one. So Estelle, have you still got your hand up? Do you want to take yourself off mute, Estelle?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yes, good, thank you.
I've got 3 questions, very small questions.
Yeah, fire away.
The first one, if we just go back to technology, I know the FA's obviously had a lot of issues. What's happening regarding the scoring system? Because we're putting scores in via the app, and we're seeing them on the screen, we're saving them to the screen, and they're not going through, and as a result we're getting fine after fine after fine.
Right. So that's issue with full time and match day.
Yes. Right. And we keep getting, I've had, I think it's 4 this week. And the managers have assured me, I've even stood on Sunday with a manager who's put them in at the match, after the match, straight away, saved them. And we've had notification they've not gone through on time.
Stella, remind me what club you're at.
What Stars JFC.
We'll need to look into that.
Thank you.
What the issue is, and if it needs to go to IT, so we can help you with that, but we won't be able to do it now. So that's all.
No, I get that.
Tomorrow. Any other questions?
Yes, 2 more. Respect banners.
Yeah.
So we're keen to promote respect, and we would really like to get our hands on some banners. So somebody kindly sent me a link to the respect shop.
Yeah.
But I can't see no banners. I can buy cups.
Here,
I can buy busy vests.
I'm putting the respect shop link in. What I'm going to do also, Estelle, I have got the artwork.
Right.
I've got the artwork on file, so I can send you the artwork, and you can go to your local printer.
Yeah.
And they will be able to.
Fantastic.
You can design it yourself. You can put your club name on it and put and then you can get as many of those printed off as you like. Brilliant. So I'll send you the artwork, and anyone else that needs it, I can send you the artwork for the respect. We only do positive respect posters, the big 4x1 meter, the artwork is.
Great. And the last question I have is, you've just gone through the last 2 or 3 slides, and we've looked at respect, how the parents are, how the players are.
Yeah.
How would you handle an issue with a coach?
So, similar. Are you referring to this particular slide around how we'd handle a coach, or just in general?
Yes, yeah, in general, yeah.
So, it'd be that. I don't want it to be my opinion. It's how you as a club want to manage it. But essentially, first step is all around your recruitment and ensuring you get the right people in the first place. Yeah. Second up is ensuring, I think it was Rachel earlier talked about buddying them up, but more about their welcome process, their intro process to the club, so they're getting the information and understanding the expected behaviours of your club, the respect policy, the code of conduct, how you expect your coaches to behave. From then on, it'll all be about based off your club rules and how you want to handle respect breaches.
So would you find, for example, I don't know, just a scenario, for example, a sideline member of staff speaking badly to the children at half time, specifically aiming criticism, stood above the child to the point they cry? Would you find it acceptable for the manager to have a quiet word with them?
That would be my minimum expectation on that behaviour is addressed. What I'm pushing for is for it not to be let's go, right, the manager's going to have a quiet word with him. I'd like the club to have a process where that is brought to the attention of the club committee
Yeah.
And you then have a process that you're going to work through that might be right. We've had a respect issue, which that one probably just falls under the threshold that negative feedback, that type of stuff would probably still remain in that respect area.
The reason I ask is obviously I've gone into great detail into the Code of Conduct section 5.7.
Yeah.
Where managers, obviously, the way they have to behave towards children. And I get your 2 slides, but, you know, I just wanted to ask how parents or players, how, if you get a child come off the pitch that's crying, have you had a good game, son? And the time I say no, the coach kept shouting at me. Well, why were you crying? He kept shouting at me. You know, and I'll be honest with all of you on here, I've experienced it in the last few weeks, and it absolutely devastated me.
Yeah, so I think from what we want is that you're able to in-house, that you can immediately go spring into action. Right, that's not acceptable, and this is our club's policy on it. You're having a reminder of the code of conduct as a coach. These are the expected behaviours. 5.7, as you said. Yeah. And it's just making it clear, if we get any more of this report, or if we see this happening again, that actually we might have to suspend you for a game, or you might need to complete the Respect E module. But I'd rather it not be, personally for me, kind of each time it's like, we'll do it this way, we'll do it that way. I'd rather you have something in place that as a club you feel confident in, that you can point to and say, this is our policy, get in line with it, or you won't be here at the club. And again, you've always got that ace card. Do you know what? If that was so serious that you thought he's never going to learn, you might have to expel that person immediately from the club. That's your kind of prerogative as the club to manage that. But for me, I think it will give you more confidence as a club if you've got a process that you've agreed on, that it's easy to point to. You're then not the bad guy either, because you're saying, this is the club's position on this. This is not a salesperson opinion, and this is the club's position. Adhere to it or don't. If you choose not to, this is what's going to happen.
I appreciate it. I just wanted some input, you know, something that I have experienced in the last couple of weeks. It was quite heart-wrenching, to be fair. And all your slides seem to be at parents and children, so just wanted some how you would address it.
Yeah, they would just the exact. I think from my personal point of view, I'd be on that straight away. And if you do want to ring me or Claire over the next few days or so to talk through it, we're more than happy to.
You're a star. Lovely, thank you. I've got no more questions. Thanks for that.
No problem. I can see there's been a few people with the artwork, so I can get back into this chat tomorrow. So what I'll do is I'll send the artwork out on the follow-up email. Is there any more questions there? Is there any more questions or anything anyone would like to add? Anything you're unsure of? Any other areas? I know I've kept you longer than I said I would. Just on the screen here, and I'll send this link out. I'm on the follow-up email. We are looking to get some information around community projects that clubs run. So you kind of, other than football stuff that you run out of your venues or where you play. So I'll be sending that link out. It'd be great if you could fill that in. It just helps us build up a bit of a picture of what else happens, particularly at your venues. We've got Alison's hand up. You want to unmute yourself?
Thanks. It's a really quick question. You were talking about the positive aspect of the reward for respect, but Huddersfield Town wasn't on the list of clubs. Just wanted to remind you that we're in the league, even if we're not in South Yorkshire. Yes,
I will be. We'll get. Hopefully, Molly's going to be able to possibly get those tickets, but it is difficult. Molly's got a hand up. Go on, unmute yourself, Moll.
Yeah, you will be on that list. It's not being published yet, so it's going to come out sometime this week. We've got a new marketing and media officer that's in process of working on it for us. So I'm sure that you're up there. I'm sure I've seen you, so you will be in there.
Brilliant, thanks, Molly. Want to be able to take advantage of the good stuff.
Any other questions? And it can be on anything, not just the respect. It can be around the technology stuff we mentioned earlier. So what I'll do, I'll send out the follow-up email tomorrow. So I'll send you a recording of this. I'll send you the slide deck. I'll send you the respect artwork and also some other bits of information linked to what we talked to tonight. But like we said, we're just really keen viewers clubs to really embed that respect in your day-to-day work and try and monitor and manage that in the kind of individual incidences before that snowballs and reaches your respect scores and to county FA and so on. And hopefully we have